Hi everyone, Luke Davids here. Welcome to a brand new video in the weekly songwriting series where I bring you some songwriting tips, some knowledge that builds upon the prior week's video, and some practical techniques and formulas that you can apply to your own songwriting. Last week we took a deeper look at the first element, song structure, and covered a typical pop song structure. If you haven't had a chance to watch that video yet, be sure to go back and check it out. I'll put the link in the description. This week we're going to take a deeper look at the second element, groove. To recap, groove is the rhythmic basis of a song, and the goal is to provide a stable foundation for the rest of the elements to build upon. So what does that mean? Well, if you recall, in the first video of this series, we compared the 5 key elements to the building of a house, where the song structure provided the framework and the groove provided the foundation. Without the groove, you wouldn't have anything for the rest of the elements to build upon. It's a necessary piece and often a piece that goes overlooked. Just like how you don't usually walk into a building and remark on how stable the foundation is, most people don't usually focus too much on the groove when they're listening. It's usually more felt than thought about. But it is still a powerful and critical element, and we want to give it its due focus, which we're going to do today. So what goes into creating a solid groove? Well, there are 3 main factors: tempo, time signature, and feel. Tempo is, in general terms, how fast or slow the groove is. So is your song a ballad, or is it upbeat, or somewhere in between? But more specifically, it's the BPMs, the beats per minute. If you've used a metronome in the past, you're familiar with BPMs. If you're not, all you really need to know is that it's the way we measure tempo, and a slight alteration in one direction or another to the BPMs can have a huge effect on the feel of your groove. The second factor is time signature, which to simplify is how many beats per measure. Most of the songs we hear are in 4/4, which means 4 quarter notes per measure. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Every now and then we'll hear songs that are in 6/8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But the major majority of songs that we hear, especially in popular music, are in 4/4. Of course, there are many other time signatures, but they're not commonly used in songwriting, so we're just going to focus on 4/4 and 6/8 for today. The third factor of groove is the feel. And by feel I mean, is the groove straight or swung? And if it's swung, how swung is it? There are different degrees of swing. Often we think of swing as something that's mainly used in jazz music, but it's a lot more common in popular music than you may think, and adding an element of swing to your groove can really make it come alive. For those of you who may be new to differentiating between straight and swing feel, you're going to want to pay attention to what's happening in between the main beats. So if we're in the time signature of 4/4, what's happening in between those 4 main beats is what's going to determine whether the groove is straight or swung. So a straight feel in 4/4 sounds like 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. It's quite rigid, everything is symmetrical and divided evenly. That's a straight feel. A swing feel in 4/4 sounds like 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. It's a lot bouncier, it kind of feels like you're skipping along. That's a swing feel. So those are the 3 main factors of groove. Now let's take a listen to some example and get an idea of how adjusting these different factors affects the overall sound of the groove. The first example we're going to listen to is in the time signature of 4/4, so 4 beats per measure, with a straight feel. So that's really the most basic of grooves, 4/4 and straight feel. It's kind of like your C major chord or vanilla ice cream, it's very standard. Next, let's take a listen to an example that's still in 4/4 but with a swing feel. So you can hear same time signature, but that swing feel makes the groove sound very different. Now let's take a listen to an example that's in 6/8, so 6 beats per measure, with a straight feel. So changing the time signature alters the groove quite a bit, as you can hear. Now let's take a listen to an example in 6/8 with the swing feel. So could you hear the difference between those last two examples? If you're used to differentiating between straight and swing, it might have been very obvious, but if this is a newer thing to you, it can take some getting accustomed to. Just remember that it's what happens in between the main beats that determines whether the groove is straight or swung. The examples we were listening to were just drums to make it easier to hear what was changing every time, but everything is going to be tied into the groove. Not only all of the other instruments, but all of the other elements as well. The way that the chords are played and the chord progression, and also the rhythm of the melody and lyrics are going to be very much affected by whatever the groove is doing. So tempo, time signature, and feel. Those are the three main considerations you're going to want to take into account when creating a groove. And a word to the wise is keep it simple when you're making your grooves. It doesn't have to be complex. Its job is just to provide a foundation. Keeping your grooves simple is enough, and will make sure that you leave enough room for the other elements to shine. So those are the basics of the second element, groove. Don't forget to check out some of the other songwriting resources in the description, and stay tuned for next week's video where we'll take a deeper look at chord progressions and go over a simple way to mature the sound of your chord writing. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you all next week. Bye.